You measure without intending, and slowly, silently, your joy loses to someone else's highlight reel. Comparison doesn't push you forward, it pulls you out of your life. Comparison is a thief that works quietly. Chapter 4. Social comparison, the silent enemy of your wallet. Comparison as an unconscious habit. Comparison is one of the most deeply ingrained behaviors in human nature. It operates quietly, almost invisibly, shaping our thoughts long before we realize it. We compare without intention, without awareness, and often without permission. This unconscious habit influences how we judge our progress, how we view our achievements, and how we decide what is enough. Because it happens automatically, comparison feels like an objective assessment of reality. But in truth, it is a distorted lens, one that can quietly weaken confidence and push us into financial decisions that do not align with our values. The roots of comparison stretch back to the earliest stages of human development. In small communities, comparison helped individuals understand their role, their strengths, and their contribution to the group. It served practical purposes, but the modern world has expanded the scope of comparison far beyond anything our minds were designed to process. Instead of comparing ourselves to a small, familiar circle, we now compare ourselves to countless people, many of whom we have never met and whose circumstances we do not fully understand. The unconscious mind interprets this constant exposure as a standard it must measure itself against. What makes comparison so powerful is its subtlety. It does not announce itself. It emerges in passing thoughts, when someone shares an accomplishment, when a friend posts a celebration, or when a stranger displays a lifestyle that seems unattainable. Without realizing it, we begin questioning our own pace, our own choices, and our own journey. We do not consciously choose to feel behind. The mind simply assumes we should be matching what we see. This is why comparison becomes so emotionally draining. It shifts our focus from our progress to someone else's highlight. Financially, the unconscious nature of comparison creates real vulnerability. People often adjust their spending not because they truly desire something, but because they believe it will help them keep pace with those around them. They upgrade lifestyles prematurely, commit to expenses without clear intention, or take on obligations they cannot comfortably sustain. These decisions feel rational in the moment because they emerge from an emotional instinct rather than conscious thought. The unconscious habit becomes a financial pattern. The challenge is that comparison rarely reflects the truth. We compare our full story, our challenges, responsibilities, and uncertainties, to someone else's edited image. We see only fragments, the success, not the struggle, the achievement, not the sacrifice, the possession, not the debt. The unconscious mind interprets these fragments as complete, creating a feeling of inadequacy that has no real foundation. This emotional misalignment pushes people toward financial choices that promise to correct the perceived gap, even though the gap is an illusion. Comparison also disrupts self-awareness. When our attention is directed outward, we lose sight of our own values and goals. Instead of asking, "What is right for me?" we unconsciously ask, "How do I measure up?" This shift weakens clarity. It makes it difficult to define success internally. As a result, individuals begin chasing standards that were never theirs to begin with. They pursue markers of achievement that hold no personal meaning, leading to dissatisfaction no matter how much progress they make. Breaking the habit of comparison does not require eliminating it entirely. That is nearly impossible. Instead, it requires bringing it into consciousness. When we recognize comparison as a natural but misleading instinct, we gain the ability to question it. we learn to interpret the feelings it creates with more honesty. We begin to shift our attention from others' paths back to our own. This awareness transforms comparison from an unconscious force into a manageable influence. The more consciously we live, the less power comparison holds. Financial decisions become more intentional. Goals become more personal. Identity becomes more grounded. And the quiet pressure to match someone else's progress begins to fade. This book will continue guiding you toward that awareness. By understanding comparison as an unconscious habit, you take the first step toward reclaiming control, choosing a financial and emotional path defined not by what you see around you, but by what truly supports your future. Why you always compare upward. Human beings rarely compare themselves to those who have less. Instead, almost instinctively, we compare ourselves to those who seem to have more success, more comfort, more recognition, more opportunity. This upward comparison is not a rational choice. It is a psychological tendency deeply woven into the structure of human behavior. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we interpret our progress, and how we make financial decisions. Understanding why we compare upward reveals not only the emotional challenges behind modern consumerism, but also the hidden reasons so many people feel perpetually behind, even when they are doing well. Upward comparison begins with aspiration. We naturally look toward people who appear to be further ahead because the mind interprets their progress as a possible future for us. This instinct is rooted in growth. Observing someone who has achieved more can inspire ambition and discipline. But in modern society, the volume of upward comparison has grown far beyond what is emotionally healthy. Instead of being inspired by one or two individuals, we are exposed to hundreds, sometimes thousands, of examples of people who seem more accomplished than we are. The mind does not differentiate between realism and projection. It simply registers that others are ahead. Another reason upward comparison occurs is that the mind is drawn to what is visible, not to what is real. People who display success, financial, professional, or social, are far more noticeable than those who quietly live within their means. The human brain pays attention to contrast. When someone showcases luxury or achievement, it stands out. When someone lives modestly or privately, it blends into the background. As a result, our perception becomes skewed. It seems as though everyone is ahead because only those who appear ahead capture our attention. Upward comparison also taps into a deeper emotional vulnerability, the desire for significance. When we believe that others are achieving more, we question our own worth. We begin to wonder whether we are falling short, moving too slowly, or making the wrong decisions. This emotional discomfort pushes us to focus even more intently on those who seem to have reached the places we long for. The more inadequate we feel, the more we look upward, not for education, but for reassurance that we are not falling behind. Unfortunately, this instinct has financial consequences. When people compare upward, they often feel compelled to adjust their lifestyles to match those above them. They upgrade their spending, commit to higher costs, or buy symbolic items that reflect a level of success they have not yet built. This creates a financial stretch that weakens stability. The more people look upward, the more pressure they feel to display upward, even when their financial reality does not support it. What makes upward comparison particularly harmful is that it rarely includes context. We see the car but not the loan. We see the vacation but not the credit card balance. We see the home but not the stress behind it. We see the success but not the sacrifices that preceded it. Upward comparison evaluates our entire story against a fraction of someone else's, and often the most polished fraction. The conclusion is almost always distorted. We assume others are progressing faster, when in fact we are comparing our reality to their presentation. There is also a biological component at play. The human brain is wired to notice threats to status. Throughout history, status was linked to survival. Those higher in status had more resources, protection, and stability. Although survival today is not determined by status in the same way, the brain still reacts as if it were. When we see someone with more, the mind interprets it as a subtle threat, a reminder that we may not be as secure as we hope. This subconscious mechanism reinforces upward comparison, even when it harms rather than helps us. Breaking free from upward comparison requires shifting our perspective from external benchmarks to internal progress. When success is defined by personal goals rather than social images, the compulsion to compare upward loses its power. We begin to measure growth based on where we have been, not on where others appear to be. This shift brings clarity, confidence, and genuine fulfillment, qualities that upward comparison can never provide. This book will continue guiding you toward that awareness. By understanding why we always compare upward, you gain the ability to interrupt the instinct before it shapes your financial life, and to build a future grounded not in comparison, but in authenticity and intention. The edited reality of others. One of the greatest distortions in modern life is the belief that what we see from others is real. In truth, we rarely see reality. We see an edited version of it. Whether online or in person, most people reveal only the parts of their lives that reflect well on them. They highlight moments of achievement, beauty, stability, or excitement, while concealing the challenges, doubts, and complexities that all human beings experience. This edited reality becomes the lens through which we judge ourselves, creating expectations that are impossible to meet and pressures that quietly influence our financial decisions. The mind does not naturally filter this information. When we encounter polished images or curated stories, we unconsciously assume we are seeing the whole picture. We forget that every life contains struggle, disappointment, and uncertainty. We overlook the hidden sacrifices, the financial pressures, the private fears, and the unspoken setbacks. This selective exposure creates the illusion that others are living flawlessly, advancing effortlessly, or succeeding consistently, while we alone face obstacles or limitations. The comparison feels objective, but it is built on incomplete information. Social media intensifies this distortion. Platforms are designed to amplify the extraordinary and minimize the ordinary. They encourage individuals to present their happiest moments, their most impressive experiences, and their most flattering achievements. What we see is not daily life. It is a highlight reel. And the mind, unaware of the editing process, interprets these fragments as the standard for what life should look like. This creates emotional friction. Our real life, with its imperfections and complexities, feels inadequate next to the curated reality of others. The consequences are deeply personal. When people compare themselves to edited realities, they begin to feel behind. Even when they are on a healthy, meaningful path, they may believe they are not achieving enough, not acquiring enough, or not living with the same enthusiasm or luxury as those they observe. This emotional discomfort pushes them toward actions designed to close the perceived gap. They spend money to replicate what they see, not because it aligns with their values, but because they fear being the only one without those experiences or symbols. But the truth is simple. No one displays their whole life. Behind every curated image is a story far more complex. The person posting a luxury vacation may be carrying significant debt. The one showcasing a new home may be overwhelmed by financial pressure. The individual sharing consistent success may be struggling with exhaustion, doubt, or insecurity. The edited reality is not intended to deceive. It is simply what people feel comfortable presenting. Yet without recognizing its limitations, we allow it to define our expectations. This dynamic affects financial decisions in profound ways. When individuals feel they must match an edited reality, they overspend on experiences, possessions, and lifestyles that do not reflect their true needs. They may take on debt to maintain an image, upgrade beyond their means, or prioritize appearance over stability. The pursuit of an edited standard becomes a silent financial burden, one that grows heavier each time the comparison is reinforced. Breaking the influence of edited reality requires conscious awareness. It begins with remembering that what we see is not the full story. Every person has unseen challenges, private responsibilities, and moments of uncertainty. Recognizing this truth restores balance. It helps us evaluate our own lives with more compassion and clarity. Instead of comparing ourselves to a curated image, we begin comparing ourselves to our own progress, to who we were yesterday, last year, or 5 years ago. By grounding ourselves in our personal reality, we reclaim emotional stability and financial intention. We stop chasing illusions and begin building lives aligned with our values, capacities, and goals. This shift brings peace, purpose, and an authentic sense of fulfillment, qualities no edited image can provide. This book will continue guiding you toward that perspective. By understanding the edited reality of others, you gain the freedom to see your journey with honesty and strength, and to make financial decisions rooted in truth rather than illusion. Envy disguised as motivation. Envy is an emotion most people hesitate to acknowledge. It feels uncomfortable, almost forbidden. So instead of naming it, the mind disguises it as something more acceptable: motivation. This transformation happens quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet it has a profound impact on how we think, behave, and make financial decisions. Envy disguised as motivation does not encourage growth. It pushes people toward imitation, comparison, and impulsive choices that do not reflect their true goals. Understanding this emotional disguise is essential for reclaiming control of one's financial and personal path. The confusion begins with how the mind interprets success around us. When we see someone achieving something we desire, whether a lifestyle, a possession, or a milestone, we often feel an emotional pull. Instead of admitting that this pull contains envy, we interpret it as inspiration. We tell ourselves, if they can do it, so can I. On the surface, this sounds empowering, but beneath that thought lies a more fragile truth. We are not inspired by the achievement itself, but by the fear of being left behind. True motivation arises from internal vision. It is driven by personal values, long-term purpose, and the desire to grow in ways that align with our identity. Envy-driven motivation, however, is reactive. It emerges when we see others advancing and feel that our own progress is insufficient. It is rooted in comparison, not authenticity. This kind of motivation does not ask, "What do I genuinely want?" Instead, it asks, "What do they have that I do not?" This emotional misalignment leads to decisions that appear purposeful, but lack intention. Someone may pursue a goal simply because it mirrors another person's achievement. They may invest in a lifestyle that reflects someone else's values. They may purchase items that act more as emotional substitutes than as meaningful additions to their lives. These decisions feel urgent because envy creates a sense of emotional pressure, a fear that not matching others will diminish our sense of worth. Financially, the effects can be significant. Envy disguised as motivation often results in premature spending. People may upgrade their lifestyle before they are ready, take on commitments that strain their budget, or prioritize appearance over stability. They may convince themselves that these choices represent ambition, when in reality they are attempts to keep pace with an idealized version of someone else's success. These decisions weaken financial security because they are based on emotion rather than strategy. Emotionally, the cost is equally high. When envy masquerades as motivation, progress never feels satisfying. No matter how much someone achieves or acquires, they continue to focus on those who seem one step ahead. The finish line keeps moving. What once felt motivating becomes exhausting because it is fueled not by purpose but by worry. Instead of experiencing fulfillment, individuals experience restlessness, an ongoing sense that they must do more, show more, or become more. This dynamic also distances people from their authentic desires. When the mind is focused on matching others, it becomes difficult to recognize what truly brings joy or meaning. Personal priorities blur. Goals become imitations rather than expressions of identity. Over time, individuals may reach milestones only to discover that they do not feel fulfilled, because the achievement was never theirs to begin with. Freedom begins when we learn to identify the emotion beneath the motivation. When we acknowledge envy, not with judgment, but with honesty, we gain the power to separate external influence from internal guidance. Envy is not a failure, it is a signal. It highlights areas where we feel insecure, uncertain, or disconnected from our own values. When we explore these feelings with clarity, we can transform them into genuine intention rather than reactive imitation. This book will continue helping you cultivate that clarity. By understanding how envy disguises itself as motivation, you can begin making decisions rooted in purpose, authenticity, and long-term financial well-being. You shift from chasing someone else's path to building your own, and in that shift you discover motivation that strengthens rather than drains you. How comparison keeps people poor. Comparison does not simply shape how we feel about ourselves, it shapes how we use our time, energy, and money. It subtly influences our priorities, redirects our attention, and pressures us into decisions that weaken financial stability. When comparison becomes a recurring pattern, it creates a cycle that is difficult to escape, one that keeps people emotionally dissatisfied and financially vulnerable. The trap is not obvious at first, because comparison feels like an internal judgment, not an external cost. But over time, it becomes one of the most powerful forces preventing individuals from achieving real financial freedom. The first way comparison keeps people poor is by shifting their focus from long-term growth to short-term appearance. When someone feels pressure to match the lifestyle of those around them, they begin making decisions that prioritize visibility over stability. They upgrade possessions prematurely, spend money to imitate others, and pursue symbols of success instead of building the foundation for it. These choices often feel necessary in the moment, but they divert resources away from saving, investing, and preparing for the future. Financial security requires patience and discipline, qualities that comparison erodes. Comparison also encourages emotional spending. When individuals feel behind, inadequate, or overlooked, they often buy to relieve the discomfort. These purchases act as emotional compensation, providing a brief sense of control or validation. But the relief is temporary. The financial consequences, however, are not. Emotional spending drains resources that could have strengthened stability, leaving individuals with less capacity to handle emergencies, opportunities, or unexpected changes. The cycle continues as more comparison leads to more discomfort and more reactive spending. Another way comparison keeps people financially stuck is by creating unrealistic expectations. When someone measures their progress against the highlight reels of others, they begin to feel that steady, gradual improvement is not enough. They search for shortcuts, quick methods to achieve visible results. This often leads to high-risk decisions, unnecessary debt, or impulsive commitments that promise advancement but deliver instability. The quiet, consistent habits that build wealth feel too slow compared to the dramatic displays they see around them. As a result, they abandon the very behaviors that could improve their financial life. Comparison also limits the ability to live within one's means. Instead of creating a lifestyle aligned with income, goals, and values, individuals attempt to match the lifestyle of those who appear more fortunate. This disconnect leads to overspending, accumulating debt, or stretching finances to unsustainable levels. People adopt expenses that belong to someone else's life, not their own, and then struggle to maintain them. The financial stress that follows can last for years, long after the initial comparison has faded. This pressure affects the way people evaluate opportunities as well. When comparison dominates the mind, individuals may avoid actions that do not appear impressive, saving modest amounts, living simply, or choosing stability over display. They may also overlook practical decisions, such as seeking financial guidance or adjusting their lifestyle, out of fear that these steps will appear like a step down. Comparison replaces rational financial thinking with emotional judgment, making wise choices feel like losses rather than progress. Perhaps most importantly, comparison keeps people poor by weakening gratitude and clarity, two essential components of financial well-being. When individuals are focused on what others have, they become blind to the resources, opportunities, and strengths they already possess. Gratitude fuels resilience, patience, and smart decision-making. Without it, every step forward feels insignificant, leading to discouragement and inconsistency. Comparison replaces appreciation with dissatisfaction, making it difficult to build momentum toward wealth. Breaking free from this cycle requires shifting attention inward. Instead of using others as a measuring stick, individuals must evaluate their financial life based on their own goals, values, and circumstances. The more someone focuses on their personal progress, the less power comparison holds. Financial security grows through intentional choices, not through imitation. This book will continue guiding you toward that intention. By understanding how comparison keeps people poor, you gain the awareness needed to step out of the cycle and begin building a financial life rooted in authenticity, discipline, and long-term strength. If you believe this chapter could help someone, feel free to share it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe. Your support truly helps us keep creating more content like this.